A crisis is any event or period that will lead, or may lead, to an unstable and dangerous situation affecting an individual, group, or all of society. Crises are negative changes in the human or environmental affairs, especially when they occur abruptly, with little or no warning. More loosely, a crisis is a testing time or an emergency. The English word crisis was borrowed from the Latin, which in turn was borrowed from the Greek crisis, discrimination, decision, crisis. The noun is derived from the verb krino, which means distinguish, choose, decide. In English, crisis was first used in a medical context, for the time in the development of a disease when a change indicates either recovery or death. That is, a turning point. It was also used for a major change in the development of a disease. By the mid-17th century, it took on the figurative meaning of a vitally important or decisive stage in the progress of anything, especially a period of uncertainty or difficulty, without necessarily having the implication of a decision point. Crisis is often linked to the concept of psychological stress and used to suggest a frightening or fraught experience. In general, crisis is the situation of a complex system. Crisis has several defining characteristics. Seeger, Selnow, and Alma say that crises have 4 defining characteristics that are specific, unexpected, and non-routine events or series of events that high levels of uncertainty and threat or perceived threat to an organization's high-priority goals. Thus the first 3 characteristics are that the event is apart from natural crises that are inherently unpredictable. Most of the crises that we face are created by man. Hence the requirements of their being unexpected depends upon man failing to note the onset of crisis conditions. Some of our inability to recognize crises before they become dangerous is due to denial and other psychological responses that provide succor and protection for our emotions. A different set of reasons for failing to notice the onset of crises is that we allow ourselves to be tricked into believing that we are doing something for reasons that are false. In other words, we are doing the wrong things for the right reasons. For example, we might believe that we are solving the threats of climate change by engaging in economic trading activity that has no real impact on the climate. Mitroff and Silvers posit 2 reasons for these mistakes, which they classify as Type 3 and Type 4 errors. The effect of our inability to attend to the likely results of our actions can result in crisis. From this perspective, we might usefully learn that failing to understand the real causes of our difficulties is likely to lead to repeated downstream blowback. Where states are concerned, Michael Brecker, based on case studies of the International Crisis Behavior Project, suggested a different way of defining crisis as conditions are perceptions held by the highest level decision makers of the actor concerned. 1. Threat to basic values, with a simultaneous or subsequent to high probability of involvement in military hostilities, and the awareness of 3. Finite time for response to the external value threat. It is frequently said in Western motivational speaking that the Chinese word for crisis is composed of 2 Chinese characters signifying danger and opportunity, respectively. This is, however, considered by linguists to be a misperception. An economic crisis is a sharp transition to a recession. See for example 1994 economic crisis in Mexico, Argentine economic crisis, South American economic crisis of 2002, economic crisis of Cameroon. Crisis theory is a central achievement in the conclusions of Karl Marx's Critique of Capital. A financial crisis may be a banking crisis or currency crisis. Crises pertaining to the environment include: an environmental disaster is a disaster that is due to human activity and should not be confused with natural disasters. In this case, the impact of humans' alteration of the ecosystem has led to widespread and or long-lasting consequences. It can include the deaths of animals and plant systems, or severe disruption of human life, possibly requiring migration. A natural disaster is the consequence of a natural hazard which moves from potential into an active phase, and as a result affects human activities. Human vulnerability. exacerbated by the lack of planning or lack of appropriate emergency management, leads to financial, structural, and human losses. The resulting loss depends on the capacity of the population to support or resist the disaster. Their resilience. This understanding is concentrated in the formulation. Disasters occur when hazards meet vulnerability. A natural hazard will hence never result in a natural disaster in areas without vulnerability, e.g., strong earthquakes in uninhabited areas. For lists of natural disasters, see the list of disasters or the list of